I'm Lindsay Lord. I'm the Director of Artist Services and Gallery 924 at the Arts Council of Indianapolis, and I'm delighted to be here with Matthew Cooper, our 2021 Art and Soul featured visual artist. Hi, Matthew.
Hi, Lindsay. Thank you for having me, guys.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to be here and have people learn more about you and your work and where your art has been and where it's headed. And so let's just get right into it.
There we go. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited too. So as far as your interaction with the Arts Council, we first got to know you when you were one of our Jiffy Lube mural artists.
Yep.
And then we've gotten to know you a little bit more. You did one of our Murals for Racial Justice.
Yep.
And that is just up hanging here in the Arts Garden. We're so delighted to have your work here during Art and Soul. And so let's just start off. Tell us a little bit about your background and who you are.
Well, kind of to give it like a quick version of it, studied at Ben Sands University where I first got my initial, introduction into like art in school under a professor, but I did more digital work, which is not really my preference. So it kind of discouraged me from following art as a real practice or showing it publicly. But then when I went to IUPUI and I was at Heron, I was still doing drawing classes. Not that I didn't want to do drawing classes, but I was more so interested in being a painter.
Yeah.
And I didn't know it at first. So my drawing classes were across the street from the painting studio. And I would just sneak over there to kind of see what they were doing because I was so interested.
Yeah.
And that kind of changed my whole thought of what I wanted to do for as art. And I knew from there that I wanted to be a painter.
Yeah. So as a kid, you were always artistic.
Oh yeah, so art was always something that just kind of kept me entertained. I guess like my mother, just being a busy, hyperactive kid, you gotta kind of keep them busy. So and art was always something that I found that kept me quiet, kept me out of trouble. And it was something that, you know, as a kid, you really don't appreciate it until you get older and you see other people doing art and you kind of like, oh, I can do that too, you know, kind of like a braggadocious thing, like, oh, I can do that, I could probably do it better, but I wasn't thinking of it that way, you know, it was just something that I did and I enjoyed as a hobby.
Yeah. So talk about, you started out at Vincent's and you took, I think you said graphic design.
Yeah, like just basic computer, Adobe, Photoshop, the whole like list of computer things that you can do, and I just wasn't interested in doing graphic work at all.
And it was artistic in a way, but it wasn't speaking to you. It wasn't the kind of artwork you wanted to do. It felt like a step closer to where you wanted to be, but not maybe not.
I don't know if it was a step closer. It kind of kept me away from doing or even following like the school style of art. It kind of made me not want to do, you know, have a professor tell me how to paint or tell me what to, because my first interaction with them, they were teaching me something that I wasn't interested in.
Yeah.
So from there I was kind of like, well, let me just figure this out myself.
Yeah.
That's kind of but then when I was, you know, faced with Heron, surrounded with artists.
Yeah.
And
so Heron was kind of an awakening. You were,
yes, it was.
Both in your technique and also receiving and giving critiques.
Oh, for sure.
Talk more about that.
It was, firsthand like art school for like, you know, when you're not really used to like critique and giving feedback and having someone tell you that your work sucks or that you need to go back and do something different. You're like, you kind of take it, you know, coming from where I'm from, you take it totally like disrespect. But you have to learn that this is a different language. This is a different arena that you're stepping into. So you got to learn the rules. Yeah. You got to learn how to play. You got to learn what's right and what's wrong. So it just kind of changed my perspective on a lot, which was good, and I needed that.
So at Heron, you were taking drawing and Africana Studies, is that right?
Yeah, so I studied just drawing, and my minor was Africana Studies, just trying to mix those two together. Because I feel it's still that it's important that African Americans see representation in museums, art, music, and all those genres.
Yeah. Talk about, so you and I met in your studio a couple times, and I should back up and say that you are just a delight to talk to.
Thank you.
Just, you know, I set up a meeting for you know, you set up a meeting on your calendar for an hour, and
Yep.
I was in your studio talking with you for 3 hours.
We probably
and
talked about nothing that you came in to talk about, which was so great.
But just, you know, your passion for art, your passion for other people's art. You
Oh,
took
yeah.
me to another artist studio. It was just so apparent how much it means to you to be a creator, and
Oh, yeah.
and you definitely have something you want to say through your art. And so talk about, you mentioned when we met that you've sort of always had something you wanted to say from the very beginning when you
Yeah.
were young. And so I was wondering about the message you've had and how it's evolved from when you were little to when you ended up at Heron and now here. That's a lot. That's a lot of.
Yeah,
That's a lot to dive
that's
into.
a mouthful right there.
Yeah.
But I think more so like just like pulling something from my childhood, which is something that I try to always. A lot of people like to reach back from their childhood, use that as inspiration to help them move forward.
Mm-hmm.
I was the opposite. I was trying to get away from my childhood, get away from my, you know, my upbringing, to create a new way for myself. And I think that's kind of like who I am, like, and that's who I am as a person. Like, I just like to do stuff my way. I think I have a good enough head on my shoulders to make right and wrong decisions. Sometimes I'm morally correct, and sometimes I'm all the way off. But that's the beauty of it. But yeah, so just I think with being younger, being the youngest, you kind of always overlook. You really don't get to speak up and speak for yourself. Everyone's speaking for you. You kind of, in my household, I got my brother's clothes, I got his stuff when he left, so I never got the choice of anything. So just being in control of my own choice to do something that I wanted to do was very like, it was powerful for me.
You
So,
used art even as you were young as a way to.
but I didn't even know that.
Yeah.
As a tool to speak
Yep.
louder, just to speak up.
Yeah.
And then as I got older, I wanted to be, I don't know, I think that my childhood never being able to like talk about it, it grew into anger. And then that anger made me want to explode on this canvas or paper or whatever it is to say. And just scream at people, really just like say, hey, I'm here, like appreciate me, look at me, see the value that I have as a black person, as a black kid, young man, and where I'm moving to. So, and I think, you know, in this world, like we can see it today, like the climate, like they really don't appreciate black humans, black people, you know, so, and then like, and I wasn't in, you know, kind of like rambling right now, but it's like, at that point, I wasn't even thinking about like what it means to be like represented as a black person, how I'm supposed to carry, and I was just saying like, hey, I have something. Like, I'm a creator, I know that I see you're doing what you're doing, but I got something different, and I need for you to listen, and that's just kind of been my focus and like my drive ever since.
Yeah.
But it didn't always come out that way. You know, my first teacher at IUPY, Anila, she smacked that down quick. Like, she was like, hey, you're not about to be great today or tomorrow, so chill out. Like, I understand that you got something, you feel that you are this great artist, but you gotta hone that anger, and you have to be able to, you know, execute it on paper or canvas or whatever this medium is, so people can understand it.
Yeah, learn that visual language so you can successfully really get your message across.
So it just doesn't come off as this angry black person. You know, that's not, and which is the easiest label to slap on you, but it's not even that. It's more so like, you know, I'm inspired, I have ambition, you know, I got something special. And sometimes when people don't see it, you're kind of like ah, she gonna shake something. It's like, but I learned that you have to transfer that to your work.
Yeah.
You know, because you can scream all day that you great, that you good, but sometimes your work don't translate that, and it's like, you're just screaming. Yeah. And that's what I was doing. I was just screaming.
Yeah.
Just screaming.
Screaming your message,
Just screaming.
So, talk about, you know, the kind of message that you were trying to convey in the work that's behind you, with which feels like a really large idea. You know, placing Black people in these historical portraits that are where you mostly see white people
Right.
and Western visual culture.
And that's like, you know, coming like after leaving school, like being around, you know, professors and your constituents, and you thinking like, oh, I need to be so deep in my work. I gotta cross-reference African American with this Western ideal and, you know, debunk how they think about us and all this other bullshit. And it's like, that's not it.
Yeah.
And that's where we keep falling short. Why we keep trying to compare and see, like, put ourselves in that? It's like, we created so much, we need to just focus on that. But this is at a time where I was trying to say, hey, you know, what if a street hustler was in, you know, during the Italian Renaissance? How flashy would he be? How good would he look? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because he would create the new look for everybody. And that's what happens today. Like, we look at people on the street, like how they wear they garb, they sweater, hoodie, shoes, loose, whether they tie their shoes up or not. And then we like, ooh, that's kind of cool. Because how they rock it, how they wear it is their own way, their own style. So just playing on like the narrative, like what would it look like if a hustler or just a young, modern black person was just strolling around, you know, in the Italian Renaissance, just duped up, looking good,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Chain on, flashy, you know, but still regal, still, they look good.
It does look good. So this was earlier on.
Yeah, that's all acrylic. That's where, you know, I was really like in textbooks, you know, researching like, you know, old artists, trying to look at their style and, you know, cross-reference with other images that I saw from people just on the street, and really just mixing them together and finding that medium and how they can work well together.
Yeah.
And it was great. I love that style.
Yeah.
But I thought I was boxing myself in
Yeah.
to be black artist.
Yeah.
Like this name to, of course I'm black. I don't have to keep doing black art. That's obvious, you know.
Yeah.
But so much that sometimes like you feel that you have to do this in order to get everybody else to understand what you're doing. Because if you just jump out doing stuff like this, it might go over people's heads and they won't get it. Or the people that you want to understand the work won't appreciate it. And that doesn't do a service for me. I want my people to understand why I'm doing this work, because it's for them.
Yeah. So you have moved from this style, and I think it's really interesting to have these two side by side, because you have moved on, you've progressed and grown in the type of work you make, both visually and also in your technique. This is really tightly and precisely done, and this is more loose. You're a little more experimental with letting things drip, using different media that looks like maybe chalk. You're actually carving into the canvas. Talk about the transition from that to this.
In my earlier work, it was about like, you know, being resourceful with the medium, like using every little drop, because I mean, everybody hear the same term, starving artists. It's, you know, it's real, you know, like art supplies is expensive, even the cheap stuff.
Yes,
Like it starts to add up, and even when you're not selling stuff and you're just trying to like build on to like your craft, you know, it gets pricey. So in the beginning I was using, you know, very cheap acrylic, and I'm trying to use every little ounce of it, adding water, whatever it can, to like make sure we're using all of it, because hey, we're not selling work at this point. So I think the time goes into it, because you really want to be very like precise with everything, because you're like, okay, this is how I'm going to be able to eat, this is how I pay my bills. So it was like very tight, and it's not fun doing work like that, you know. That felt like a job. But this, moving into like my newer work, this is something that I've always wanted to do. And it was like, could I believe in myself enough to step out and do a style that I truly care about? Because, you know, sometimes when you're doing work, and I don't know if any other artists can like contest to this, like sometimes you do stuff just to please other people.
Sure.
A lot of times you do stuff to please other people. And it gets to a point where that doesn't work for the artist no more, and it starts to kill your creativity. And you hit a point where it's like, how many portraits can I paint?
Sure.
Seriously, like how many portraits can I paint of black people that say I'm strong and I'm black?
Yeah.
What else can I do to connect with other people, just everyday life?
Share personal experience.
Personal experience. So stuff like this where it's like, and I feel like this is what art should be. It should make you question the piece. Is it done? Is he finished? Is that how he wants it? Why is it drip? And it's daring too. All of it's not complete. The clouds are whatever. You kind of make it what you want. And I love that about art, or even artists that take pride in saying, hey, this is my finished work, whether it's complete or not. I think artists learn to take power back from the viewers to say, hey, this is the work and this is how I decide to present it to you.
Yeah.
Enjoy it or don't enjoy it.
Yeah. And we've talked about this before, but I just love the direction you're headed, because I think some artists may think that there's confidence in precision.
Oh, for sure.
And working a piece and providing every detail like you have in that.
I did, yes.
Yeah, but here, there's confidence in looseness too, to be able to take a brush and just decide, you know what, I'm going to do that one mark. She needs that one yellow highlight.
It's really just being a kid again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like tapping in and being a kid, because when you look at kids do art, they have no, like, the way they see things is how do I say this? Their imagination is not, like, contaminated with all the other stuff that we are dealing with, like, you know, bills, our jobs, our bosses, like, that stuff gets in our head, so we have to do it this way. Kids, they're doing it what feels good to them.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to go back to, like, what feels good.
Yeah.
Like, she's literally, like, on fire because she's running so fast.
Yeah.
She's smoking the dudes. It's like, and I can remember, like, there was a girl in our neighborhood, LaToya Williams, like, she was a tomboy, but she played football, she played basketball, and she smoked all of us.
Yeah.
Even the first girl I got beat up by, like, she was, like, untouchable.
Yeah.
And that's the time where you gotta, like, just go back to your childhood and remember, like, just running through the neighborhood, knowing everybody's house, knowing everybody that's on the block, because everybody knows you, everybody knows your mom.
Yeah.
That's how I grew up. Like, everybody knew when somebody hear a whistle, oh, that's Beverly calling for Matthew.
Yeah. It's just so, I just love, it's been, like I said, it's been so great to talk to you, and you are just in this talk right here, in how you talked about this piece and how you talked about this piece, you can definitely tell you have, like, settled into a style, and the way you talk about it is so much more, you can just tell you're really excited about.
I enjoyed this more because, again, it's just confidence. It's just building on the confidence that you thought you had. You know, when you first start out, you got to lie to yourself to keep yourself going.
Yeah.
You know, I'm so good, I can do this. I'm the best artist. It's like, bro, stop. No, you're not there yet, you know? And you're really doing stuff just to please other people. So, but when you step in and doing something that you just love and you appreciate, and you could care less if, you know, it sells or not, I think that's the beauty right there.
Yeah.
And that's where real art comes from. You know, when you're just doing it how you want to.
Yeah.
Because who wants to see, like, copy cutouts of surreal pictures of whoever your favorite celebrity is? Who cares?
Right.
Who cares? Honestly, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, how about something that really speaks, that it touches, and your kids, your mom, your grandma can all take a sense of it and be like, oh, I remember when we used to run, or, oh, Jimmy had a car like that, or whatever it may be. Like, oh, our first house was wood, or
people
it's just
can place themselves amongst
they place themselves right in the art, and it's like, that's what I love.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just, I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, I got that, I did that, but, and I'm still that. Like, I'm not trying to, like, overstep that. Like, I'm still,
that's still there.
That's still there.
Yeah.
But, I wanted something that resonates with everybody.
Yeah. So when we met at your studio, another thing that we talked about that we didn't directly talk about it, but it kept coming up, and so I wanted to ask you about it, was the role of mentorship in your life. It seemed like you had a mentor in the arts or in art early on, and then you also talked about your professors at Heron, and then you also talked about eventually wanting to give back and be a mentor yourself. So just talk about that a little bit.
So my first, so growing up, I was like, I call myself like a summer camp kid. I was in a summer camp every year, and I think that's just majority like inner city kids, just like in summer camps, and, you know, that's just a way of life. But one year I went to Kaleidoscope, which is out on the east side on 46, and the counselor or the guy over name was Mr. R, Robert Nunley, and he was a different male figure for me because growing up, like I got two older brothers, and they were like, you know, brothers. They beat you up, they play basketball, they wrestle, you know, the normal. But Mr. R was like nature, trail mix. He drove a van. He didn't listen to no music in his car. It was like NPR radio, and he played ping pong and tennis, and he had us doing sports that I wasn't accustomed to. And I mean, I'm a mean ping pong player like now, so if anybody want to take me up. But and I attest that to Mr. R. So one year I was trying to do something nice for my mother. I was like, oh, every artist, I'm gonna make her something. Yeah. So I'm pretty tired. She was tired of all the pinch pots that I made her. So I was like, I'm gonna make her like a board, I'm gonna present something to her. I don't know what I was thinking, but I had it all drawn out. So I know my mother loved jazz music, so I made like these little jazz figures and like these little people playing. And I took it to Mr. R. I was like, hey, can you help me do this? And he looked at me like, you did this? Because I was like the kind of like the troublemaking kid. Like I was getting into trouble. I was a hyper kid, just kind of into everything. And once he saw that, he kind of took me to the side and was like, yo, you got something. Like you can actually draw. You're actually creative. And from there, he started to take me like on Saturdays and take me to the park and allow me to draw on like pencils and drawing boards. Basic, like nothing like fancy with the medium, but just drawing and getting my interests involved in it, which was really nice. And then after that, I kind of dropped art again. You know, just getting older, I was focused more on sports. But then once I went to college, my first professor, Anila, I really took a real liking to her. For one, she was an artist that talked it and walked it.
Talked to what?
She talked art and she walked it because
yeah.
her work was amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And her story, her background, and I felt that I connected with her story and I was like a Doberman pincher, ears up, like listening. Whatever she said, I was listening. So, and it helped me see myself different as an artist. And then I gained my confidence back, and as I was trying to figure out where to direct myself and where to take my art, I was just on the internet like searching for who is doing what I'm doing from here. And then I ran across Loban Hamilton.
Yeah. Local artist.
Yeah, he's a local artist,
yeah.
but he does vinyl work. But his stuff was on Empire. And I was like, okay,
on
he got
TV, yeah.
He's on TV, so maybe I should go talk to him.
Yeah.
And of course I had no way of like finding this guy, so I did like what every other millennial does. I inboxed him on like social media or something. I don't think he even like wrote back.
Yeah.
But I had saw him at like an art store, and I like stopped him like a fanboy, like, hey, stop. You're Loban, aren't you? You know what I mean? Like, I know it's him and he knows. But I was like, hey, I saw your work and I want to come talk to you because I want to do art, but I don't know what I'm doing, basically. Yeah. And, you know, he opened, and still to this day, he's still the same. Like, gives me good advice, good pointers, give me honest feedback. Yeah. And, yeah, just an all-around great guy. Yeah. His dad is great, too. I mean, his dad even gives me great advice on what I should be doing and how to build onto my career as an artist. Yeah. So
that's so great. That's you know, as the Arts Council, we always try to tell emerging artists, you know, find a mentor, find someone who, you know, does visually the kind of work you are interested in, but also is good at the business side. So that's huge. That's awesome.
And it keeps you like motivated, because if you don't see anybody from like where you from doing it, you'll kind of give up or not give up, but you'll lose hope. Yeah. And, you know, meeting and still, you know, meeting up with Loban and being able to hang out with him, like, just keeps that fire going to even want to do it to the next artist that's like coming up to like, hey, this guy has something, or maybe he doesn't have everything in line, because I don't have everything in line, but whatever I can do to help the next, I'm willing to do that.
Yeah.
So that's what that's what I'm inspired to do, like, just to continue to give back.
Yeah. Maybe be that person for an up-and-coming artist.
Hopefully, if they like my work enough to be like, hey, you're Matthew, and
yeah.
hey, I always liked your work, and blah, like, that'd be great. Even if they don't like it, I still want to help them, because I feel like it's not enough of that in the city. And I think that's why so many other artists go to different states and stuff like that, because we always scream the word community, but I don't think we know how to properly do community.
Sure.
So when you just like giving back and don't want nothing in return, and you showing up to their events and giving them honest feedback, that's what it's all about right there.
Yeah.
So it goes a long way.
Yeah, that's a good segue to, you're talking about community and learning from other artists. What does it mean for you to be at the Circle City Industrial Complex, where you have a studio and are surrounded by other artists?
It makes me feel like I'm back at art school.
Yeah.
Like that competition comes back. The sense of like just bouncing ideas off of other artists, getting them to come into your studio. Like I have like the studio where it's like community based, where I just leave it open. Well, sometimes, but allow, if somebody of my friends need like some paint, whatever, like my studio's open for them to go in and get it.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I leave it. So we got to help each other out.
Yeah.
That's the only way we can make it.
Especially in 2020.
Especially in
Which
2020.
Is not 2020
well,
anymore.
2021, the next step, what I'm saying, like no New Year's resolution, like this is just the next step to like 2020. Like where do we take that?
Yeah. So speaking of 2020, how was it being an artist in 2020?
Artist turned activist. That's what 2020 was. It was, if you were an artist that was behind the canvas, like you got the chance to come out and speak up, let your voice be heard. I think a lot of artists didn't know that they had a voice. Let me say it this way. I don't think a lot of artists at that time thought that their voice meant something to the greater cause of what was going on. And I think that was an eye-opener for me, that I was called to communicate or, communicate visually something that was, hard to stomach, but to visually conceptualize an idea that bring us together or can show some type of sense of moving forward. So, that was it's a double sword. I felt good to be able to be called, but then again, it was kind of like, is this really my battle?
Right.
To be
it's
taken.
A lot to put on your shoulders.
It's a lot to put on for an artist to speak up for when it's something that happens. So it happens so often in our community that now that they want us to speak up and say something, that's kind of, I don't know. It kind of made my eyes kind of,
So talk about, and if you don't want to go, and this is off the record, if you don't want to go too far down that path, that's fine. I know we talked about that a little bit when we got together, but the next thing I was going to ask is talking about the public art that you've made versus the art that you make in your studio. What?
I don't want to get too passionate and cuss, but we can go. Like, we can. If it don't work out, we'll just.
Okay. We'll just talk to Ty when it's all over.
Ty just had to chop that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, we can talk about it though.
Okay. So, talk a little bit about your public art experience. You've done 2 murals, the Jiffy Lube and the mural for racial justice, which again is hanging behind us. Talk about that versus the work that you make in your studio.
So the one for the racial injustice was like the biggest one for me. I was able to do 3 pieces on the North Capitol building, which is the old city county building. But it was a call to do something for the police injustice that was going on around the world. So, a call to, I believe it was 12 to 16 other artists that were involved. And it was a tough time, you know, and it's still a tough time to, you know, be able to talk about the situation. But to go on task, I created 3 pictures to just inspire the Black community, just to kind of keep us together, because, you know, for us this happens more often than usual, and I think it was just new for like white America to like actually open their eyes and get behind it. So it was a new visual for them to like, oh, like we actually see what's going on, like this is wrong, you know.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, I was happy to do it because I always love promoting my artwork, you know. But then I was like, what happens when the next Black man dies? Like, what happens when the next time someone's shot, killed, cold? It's like, do you guys have like something else or another opportunity, or like, what does that call look for then?
Yeah.
You know, so it has, I mean, a lot of times like people don't, again, seeing us as humans, like not just as like a marketing pitch, not as just something that's like, oh, this is what's buzzing right now, let's focus on this. I mean, that literally had the whole world at like standstill.
Yeah.
George Floyd death, like that had everybody at a standstill.
Yeah.
Like cold, like it was cold in the world.
Yeah.
Like, and even white people was like, they understood like, damn, I know what it feels like to be Black a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I had a lot of people come and tell me that, and it was like, well, yeah, welcome to my world. And you kind of understand why some of us can be aggressive or angry or, you know, not always smiling, or because it's like we see this every day. We grew up with this.
Yeah.
You know, and now that you and your, you know, privileged life can see and understand it, what do we do now? Yeah. Like, honestly, what do we do now? And I'm all about that conversation. Like, what do we do? Because I'm happy that they are actually starting to get behind it and, you know, want to support it and be what that they say that our allies or whatever. But, you know, is this something that's just going to be swept under the rug again? Or is this something that we can actually move forward with? Yeah. And I feel like art is a tool that we can use as a conversation piece to move the conversation forward. And I think that's why they, you know, went out to reach out to other Black artists to push that conversation. However, did the actual conversation get had? I don't know. Yeah. Did the murals do justice for the city? Yeah. I don't know.
And will this progress continue?
And will this progress continue? Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. You know, and that's where it's like the other side of the sword for me. It's like, again, I'm happy to be a part of it. I'm always down for the cause. Yeah. If it's art, I'm down. Yeah. But if it's just to be, you know,
it needs to be more than just that moment. It needs to be momentum that builds.
That's a fact. Yeah. It has to be. Because this stuff happens every day. Yeah. After George Floyd, it was probably the next day. Yeah. What we talking about. Yeah. So it's like, that's kind of where I stand on that one.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
For sure.
Appreciate you talking about that.
Yeah.
How to segue from that?
Sorry.
No,
Sorry.
That's okay.
That segue. And that's why, like, I didn't want to, like, because that's where, like, I know sometimes my passion can convey, like, oh, I even felt it myself, like, because it bothers me, it angers me, like, because I was never one to even like get involved in politics or the news or anything like that. Yeah. I was like an artist that wanted to stay in this artist shell.
Your work is about your own experience.
But some people always assume that since you're an artist that this is a part of your work. Right. Someone in this has to do something for you to want to create. Yeah. Don't put that on me. Yeah. Don't put that on creators because that is a lot of pressure. Sure. To say I have to go out and create something that
you have to be the voice for. Yeah.
Yo.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know about it. You're saying like it's just a lot to personally deal with. You know that. Sure. Am I ready to go create and be at the highest level to create something effectively when all this is going on? Hell, even when I'm doing pieces in the city, I get the cops called on me. Oh, so it's like, how effective can I be when it really hits home? Like that's on TV. But then when you're doing something paid for, I got like a lanyard on and everything. Yeah. Has a sign that says I'm Art Council approved or whatever. You still get the cops called on you because it's like the double sword. Yeah. So
Is doing more public art, is that a goal of yours?
for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Jiffy Lube was like the greatest, was like one of the best experience, like working scale wise. Having that mentor like Ish Muhammad, he was like great. Like he just taught me so much about how to be prepared, time and time management and stuff like that. Like I think it's something for every young artist, emerging artist, that should get behind that opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, just to sharpen your tool belt, like you got to. So, and I love the reaction that I get from, you know, people driving by, taking pictures with my work. So, I mean, that's no greater feeling than that. So, more public art is definitely in the works for me for sure.
Yeah, it's great. Talk about some of your influences. Who, you know, deceased, living. Who are some artists that you?
So like, I always like to go towards like the artists that were doing stuff their way, like rebellious. Miles Davis is like one of my favorite artists of all time. And just the way he lived and died for art, you know, music. He didn't like people call, he even like would get mad if you called jazz, you know what I mean, jazz music, because he was like, you know, don't box my stuff in, like, oh, what you doing? And I just love how he come across as an artist, because he lived and died by what when he was wrong hard. You see what I'm saying? Like he was committed to how wrong he was, and I love that. And he stood on that. So Miles Davis, I love Miles Davis. Visual artist, Basquiat, of course, he's like the first like introduction for a lot of black artists. You know, if you're, you know, searching, you know, Basquiat's gonna be the first person, because he was an artist. You know, he was what you, I mean, when you think of an artist, he's like the first image. You know,
He lived his art. He had to.
Oh yeah, I mean, he lived and breathed it. You know, barely wore. I mean, he just did what he wanted. Walked the streets, did what he wanted. You know, partied all night, hang out with celebrities, go downtown, and, you know, do a piece all night. And, you know, he lived a life. He had someone to, you know, push his work, and all he had to do was just create. That's like the life. But that's not for every artist. You know, like his style and his lifestyle was, you know, it's much more than, you know, just a creative individual. It was dark. But that's what made better work, I feel, sometimes. So yeah, Basquiat, great inspiration for me when I first started. Henry Taylor is another great artist that I just recently actually found out about. And just his style of painting. He was really interesting. He said, I'm trying to be the worst painter in the room. And I thought that was really great to say, like, you know, who's trying to be the worst painter in the room? Like, you know, from a visual standpoint, like, you're trying to be like the best, but and just the stuff that he paints, like he might have like Ronald McDonald with like soldiers surrounded by like Washington D.C. You know, obviously there's a deeper message there, and but it's just so like, who thinks of that? You know, who thinks of that? And like his paintings are not all the way finished. It's like drip marks everywhere.
Yeah.
You could, and then when you hear him talk, it's like, what the hell is he talking about? Like,
there's definitely, like we were talking about earlier, there's definitely like that confidence with the use of materials.
Or not even knowing what he's doing and just doing it.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like faking it till you make it. It's like, well, this line mark works. Let's just keep going, you know? And it's beauty in that. Like, I love that about an artist. Noah Davis, who's another artist that I recently just got his book off of Amazon, and I mean, just phenomenal. Like, just the way they were able to not even like approach a canvas and make it so like there's subtle marks, there's subtle mark makings. How they allow like the drips like this to take over the whole picture, and again, that confidence that they had, just how they approached work. It was something that I never saw before. Like, they were making work to really disturb the viewer, and I love that. You know, sometimes you making work to make them feel good, and it's like, nah, they were doing the opposite. And I was like, I like that. Cause it's like their work matches their personality, you know, and that's what I'm moving towards. Like, I'm like an introvert, but I love human interaction. At the same time, like, I'm like this passionate, over aggressive sometimes like person, but I still have this soft side where I just want to help everybody.
Yeah.
So how do you find how do you find this nice medium and, you know, put it on canvas where people are like, oh, that reflects Matthew. You know, that's him on the canvas. So that's what I'm after, and that's what I love that they have accomplished in their work.
Yeah.
And I'm still like just on the hunt for other artists that are doing something rebellious.
Yeah.
You know.
Full circle, Henry Taylor did a painting of Miles Davis.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
In front of the
In
White
front of
House.
the White House. Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
So it's just, man, and I just think when Henry and Noah, like, they're doing work it resonates with everybody.
Yeah.
You know, visually it's not the best painting, but I think that's what the viewer sometimes needs. You don't always need this picture that is like a portrait like the president or something like that, how, you know, real it can look in the flesh tones and the shadows. Like, that stuff is, yeah, we get it. Like, how playful can you get with a medium? And that has a feeling that almost feels like music or a ballet or a dance, and it just like whimsically just goes together. It just flows. Yeah. You know, and that's art right there. Yeah. That's art.
Well, that's a beautiful way to close things out. I love
agree.
that.
I agree.
It's been so nice to talk to you. It's like I said, when we did your studio visit, I could have hung out forever, but I had to get home to dinner.
That's awesome. This was up.
So, how can people find you on Instagram? Do you have a website? Do you have any upcoming exhibitions? What's going on?
So God willing, 2020 plays out right. 2021 plays out right. Yeah. But right now, I'm just they can find me on social Instagram. So it's Matthew_E Cooper. I have a Facebook as well, same first and last name, Matthew Cooper. Working on the website, just like everybody else, comingsoon.com. And then I do have some upcoming shows. I do have a solo show at CCIC in May.
Oh, great.
And then I have another solo exhibit at the airport in December, I believe, that will be up for viewing. Yeah. And calendar is still filling, so if anybody want to show, let me know.
That's great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.